Do you read me like the emoji? Do you read me like the emoji? What? I do a lot, I spend a lot of time defending millennials on the internet because I think they're awfully misunderstood. I aspire to be like millennials in a lot of ways. I wish I could have been born a millennial. I would even go so far as to say, think about the happiest person you know. Why is it always a millennial, right? They know something we don't. And so, love millennials, but I know a millennial wrote this. Do you read me like the emoji? What emoji? The existential question presented with the song. Maybe they're taking like a Kierkegaard existential, philosophically existential approach to this narrative. Maybe it's the emoji within all of us. We are emojis by nature. I don't know. This might even be beyond the work of millennials. We might be looking at a Gen X writer for this one. The emoji. What is that article doing there? With the song Internet Girl by Cat's Eye, which has only been performed, hasn't been released yet, what I think we're seeing is a moment where the classic language of girl group pop runs into an audience that doesn't always know how to read it anymore, or maybe, in a lot of instances, I think, an audience that doesn't want to read this language anymore. The song sits at the same crossroads that has really shaped girl groups for decades. Industry creatives trying to recreate the big, dramatic personas that worked in the past, and also Cat's Eye, the members of Cat's Eye, who are naturally strong performers, leaning into that same kind of tradition. Cat's Eye especially stands out here because their whole identity on stage, performance-wise, shows that they fully understand that being in a girl group means, to them, stepping into something a little more theatrical than normal pop music. Girl group music has always thrived in that zone of spectacle and exaggeration, where things are supposed to feel much bigger than life. This is the same logic that makes Fifth Harmony's legacy more important than I think people are even ready to admit. I'm thinking, of course, Michelle Obama, purse so heavy getting Oprah dollars. Every day is payday, swipe my card, then I do the nay-nay. Strong reminders of that hyperbolic narration that girl groups have always excelled at. Fifth Harmony's catalog is littered with cartoonishly lavish imagery, empowerment inflated to opera-level scales, and punchlines delivered with such deadpan seriousness. That approach was fully intentional. It is the connective tissue between the myth-making of groups like Destiny's Child, second-gen K-pop's maximalism, and now today, Cat's Eye and other global groups' emerging identities. I think this is the basis of what girl groups do and have always done, transforming everyday confidence into mythology. I've mentioned this before, but it reminds me a lot of what happened with the Twilight cast. By the later films, the actors seemed to collectively understand what they had signed up for. They stopped resisting the inherent camp of the source material and instead rose to meet it. They embraced the kind of earnestness that borders on the ridiculous. And it worked, because camp only collapses when you fight against it. When you inhabit it, it becomes artistry. Case in point, Gnarly, right? Cat's Eye to me are functioning in this very same register as Twilight, fully aware of this melodramatic, archetypal language of girl group pop and completely unafraid to perform inside of it, to live in it in a lot of ways. We can look to Blackpink to see the same instinct carried out by girl groups. By the time Blackpink reached the album, their work began to tap more directly into the lineage of that, again, larger-than-life girl group spectacle, right? The later released Pink Venom makes this especially clear to me. We have this desert expanse and floating enchanted fabrics. All of these elements, and Blackpink's entire discography as a whole, contributes to a version of girl group iconography that feels rooted in very familiar traditions while also tapping into new territories. Pink Venom is incredibly referential both in the visuals and the lyrics themselves, right? The visual grammar evokes the theatrical boldness that shaped early K-pop, and yet the textures still feel distinctly contemporary. Blackpink shows to me that the classic language of girl group mythology is, or I guess should be, used as a toolkit that can repurpose these aesthetics to the modern day. Their visuals point toward a future where those grand aesthetics evolve through new techniques, creating something that does honor the past, but expanding the possibilities of what girl group spectacle can look like today. And the reason why I bring all of this up is because I think this is where Cat's Eye's situation gets more complicated, and where songs like Internet Girl run into a little bit of trouble. Larger-than-life concepts aren't really something that you can just drop into a song and expect to work. I think as we're starting to see, they need very careful shaping, especially now when audiences can really spot anything that feels forced or overly engineered or designed to go viral, right? The line between what is acceptable and just corny usually isn't about what the song is trying to say. It's about how well everything around that idea is built to support it. Fifth Harmony could get away with lines like "purse so heavy getting Oprah dollars," partially because it was the 2010s, but also because the whole package made the exaggeration feel intentional and fun, right? With Cat's Eye, the ideas behind Internet Girl do make sense on paper. You know, hyperreality, I guess, digital girlhood, and the performance of online identity, but the presentation doesn't fully lock in. It doesn't fully meet what's being discussed. I would say songs like Gnarly, Debut, and now Internet Girl each aim for that big, very over-the-top scale, but they don't all land in the same way. I would still, to this day, argue that Gnarly actually succeeds perfectly. The production, the writing, and the performance all move in the same exaggerated direction, and the result feels intentionally mythic rather than something that is clumsy. The song debut as well shows a real awareness of girl group history. Their musical references feel researched, but the writing still became a sticking point for a lot of listeners. Internet Girl, though, seems to struggle for a different reason. I think it's that there's no clear conceptual floor underneath it. In that way, I'd compare it to a song like Game Boy. Perfectly fine, inoffensive pop music, but it is built on such a thin idea that the visuals really have to compensate for it. The reliance on video game aesthetics in the music video make the gap even clearer. It isn't that nostalgia can't work here. I don't think that's even the conversation happening. I feel like Game Boy's existence hinges on the fact that the producers and writers didn't have a conceptualization of video games in the modern day. It's that this particular nostalgia doesn't feel connected to the present cultural moment. The concept remains way too vague, too lightly sketched to feel substantive, right? The result is a song that gestures towards a theme without committing to the world. That's what we need with Cat's Eye. Internet Girl's Eat Zucchini line, arguably the most memorable, I would say mythic moment in the entire track, it feels like a spark that never gets the fuel it needs. There is something here. There is a narrative that could have been presented, but it's never explored. A line like this could anchor the concept of visual identity, but the rest of the song never builds around it. Mythic scale has to be earned through development. One standout moment can't really carry the entire frame. And this brings us to what I believe is the heart of the matter. Cat's Eye operate at a scale that very few groups today even attempt or are interested in meeting. The performance suggests a group built to play in the realm of myth, where that exaggeration becomes the storytelling. When they hit that target, as with Gnarly or even parts of Debut, the results feel genuinely exciting, like they're carrying forward the long, dramatic history of world building and girl groups into a new era. They undoubtedly already have the raw presence and theatrical instincts that this kind of pop music mythology requires, but Internet Girl shows how delicate that balance really is. Mythic scale only works when every piece of the concept pulls in the same direction. The song gestures at, again, this idea of digital femininity and hyperreality, but it doesn't give those ideas the structure and nuance they need to become solid, even if it's still presented in a ridiculous way. And of course, certain lines actually work against the intended effect. Do you read me like the emoji? A perfect example. It sounds hip on the surface, but doesn't quite reflect how people actually use emojis. So to me, the line ends up feeling grossly disconnected from the culture it's referencing. It's the same issue that shows up in a song like Game Boy with, quote, "You're just a Game Boy, I should throw it away, boy." The writing creates an unintentional, very existential paradox due to the writer's conceptual limitations. Are we throwing away the game or the Game Boy itself? The imagery loses clarity over time, and with it, the mythic footing slips a little bit. It makes the concept feel self-conscious in a lot of ways. This is also where I believe Internet Girl struggles. The song reaches for the spectacular, but the conceptual base just can't quite hold the weight of the scale it wants to achieve. Cat's Eye clearly understand the appeal of grand, heightened girl group storytelling, and they have the performance talent to pull it off already. What they need, and what their strongest songs already point toward, is a level of conceptual cohesion that lets their mythic instincts thrive rather than, sink. The potential is there, unmistakably. Internet Girl simply reveals how precise this work needs to be. When the foundation is solid, the myth can become art, and I love it. Cat's Eye are learning that in real time, navigating the challenge of building a world sturdy enough to hold all of what they want to achieve. These are my thoughts. Please let the members in the studio give the members the pens. I think we could fix a lot of these problems by letting them be involved with the work. Internet Girl is good, but on first impression, from the live performance at least, it's probably going to sit at the same table as Game Boy for me. Inoffensive, a great song, but the writing betrays the song's ambitions in ways that are hard to ignore. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you for watching this. If you did, let me know what you think about this. Do you agree or disagree? Do you see the song and or Cat's Eye's concept in a different way? And things like that. Yes, thanks again for watching. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.